I started my project by milling the rack out of a cold-rolled steel bar. Cold rolling introduces stresses in the material, especially near the surface. To avoid warping, it's best to take the same amount off of each side. The holes in the rack were milled oblong, 50 thou out of round. After trimming the ends and deburring, I did some file work to brighten the finish. The lower slider was the next part. After roughing it to shape, I milled a slot for the rack, then silver soldered an 1/8" plate over the slot. This is the hole, drilled and reamed, for the clevis pin. Milling the outside profile. This is a slot for the pin retractor. After completing the profile, I'll start on building the saddle. The saddle is silver soldered to the body. Then a hole is drilled for the ratchet pin. Now a bit of lathe and drill press work. While I'm set up, I'll cut all the pins for my model. A ramp is filed that will retract the ratchet pin when the slider is moved upwards. Now it's time for assembly and testing of the lower slider. Hey, that looks pretty good, eh? The upper slider is more complex. I'll start by cutting a large notch out of the workpiece. The scrap will be used later to build the saddle. First I'll mill the profile to size. Then a slot is cut for the rack and tested. The plate over the slot needs to be thicker than the plate on the lower slider. After milling the outside profile, a pocket is cut for the lower slider. Then a hole is drilled for the main spring relief. Now I drill and tap for the one and only screw in the JackAll assembly. A boss is milled for the direction lever. Now I'll square off the scrap from the notch and cut the saddle profile. Next is the bracket that does the lifting. This is the piece that will slip off of the bumper when you're jacking up your truck. After silver soldering the saddle and the bracket to the body, the lower slide starts taking shape. I chose not to include the wire stretcher on my model because it destroys the symmetry and harmony of this beautiful design. And now to clean it up and make it look nice. Building the jack handle is a fairly straightforward job. And now I need the clevis to hook it all together. Well, say, it goes up as advertised. Now to make it go down. The pin retractor will pluck the pins out of the rack when lowering the jack. It's held in neutral position by the direction lever when raising the jack, and pushed downwards by the main spring for lowering. Filing the ramps that retract the pins is kind of a fussy operation. The position of these ramps is critical to operation of the jack. Now to build the direction lever. Sometimes a paper model can save a lot of time and frustration. The final part needed is the foot. Again, slot was cut for the rack. I'm getting pretty good at this. The components are silver soldered together. The foot is held to the rack by a cotter pin. This makes for easy removal for wire stretching operations. Well, that was a fun build, and everyone who sees my model has a JackAll horror story of some kind to tell.